very much for joining the Kila Chari Torah Halacha Review for Monday, October 19th. We've been talking about the idea of speaking Divrei Torah at the table when you sit with others or even by yourself at the table to enjoy a meal. We are obligated, we must always include some words of Torah so that in keeping with what it says in the Mishnah and other places, as we said yesterday, our table is considered an altar before Hashem and not, God forbid, the opposite, an idolatrous gathering. So what should be learned? What is it that we should learn? Some posts can maintain that you can fulfill the mitzvah through saying Birkat HaMazon. Birchas HaMazon, the grace after meals, has before it a chapter of Psalms. Shir HaMa'alot on a day like today, Rosh Chodesh, or the month of Tishrei after following Yom Kippur when we had the Sukkot and Chag and all that. So we're not saying Tachanun those days, but on the days when you don't say Tachanun, you do say Shir HaMa'alos, and on the days when you do say Tachanun, when it's not particularly a festive occasion, even though we're supposed to be happy all the time, there is a chapter of Psalms 137 by the waters of Babylon, which is printed in the benchers and in the Siddur before Birkat HaMazon. So if we're not saying one chapter of Tehillim, we're saying the other. And there's an opinion brought in the Bartanur on Pirkei Avos, other places. It says that by saying that chapter of Psalms, we do fulfill our obligation of Divrei Torah. At very least, we could say, well, I said a chapter of Psalms. What do you want from my life? It says better, says Tiferes Yisrael, Magen Avram in the Shulchan Aruch and other places, not to rely on that. If you can, if worse comes to worse, you forget somehow or other, and you don't get to say a proper Dvar Torah. So you could say, well, at least we said that chapter of Tehillim. It's preferable to learn Divrei Torah, and fortunate is the one who does this. These the words of Aruch HaShulchan. Some have accustomed to learn a Mishnah at each meal. In this way, you complete 6 volumes of Mishnah. Take you, I don't know, how long will it take you? A year or two? Maybe a little bit more, probably a little bit more. But some say there's a custom to learn a Mishnah in Zvachim because that talks about sacrifice, talks about slaughtering when it doesn't necessarily have to do with bringing offerings to the altar. In other words, slaughtering animals just for our own eating, for our own enjoyment, which we're allowed to do. Others have a custom to recite, B'diavad, you could say Shir Malos or Naros Bava, like we said. In a pressing situation, it's sufficient to say Mayim Acharonim Chova. That's a halacha, which the Ben Ish Chai mentioned. You could say that's just 3 words. It's an obligation to do Mayim Achronim, to wash your fingertips after the meal before benching. So if you say that, that's a Dvar Torah. But again, in a pinch. Some suggest Mizmor LeDavid Hashem because it has Torah and also a tefillah for Parnasa. Differing opinions about when exactly you should say it. Say the Dvar Torah, you say before you eat, so they say after you're eating. The minhag seems to be you could say any time during the meal. We're not going to be so particular that you must say it at this point or that point, but say a Dvar Torah at some point in the course of your meal before you start the Birkat HaMazon and or Mayim Achronim before that. What about a non-bread meal? So you're sitting down, just having a coffee and a what's the word I'm looking for? A biscotti. So it's a mazonos. It's not, you're not washing, you're not benching, anything like that. Shortened form of Birkat HaMazon after that. The accepted custom is that the mitzvah of saying Divrei Torah is applicable only when there's a bread meal taking place. Feel free to go above and beyond the minimum calling of the law, the strictest interpretation of the law, in the sense, be a little bit liberal and say a Dvar Torah even when you're just having coffee with a friend, even though it's not necessarily a meal per se. Okay, a couple of more halachas pertaining to the table, the meal. So we'll cover those tomorrow or tomorrow and the next day, Emir Hashem. So please tune in then. Let me just remind everybody who's listening today that this evening we are starting our study for the course of the year, hopefully, of Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs's new book, Morality. Which is an excellent read for those of who had to take a chance to peek over the summer when it came out in the UK. It's now out in North America. So we'll be studying that tonight on Zoom. There's an email that went out before Shabbos, after Shabbos, yesterday maybe, with the link for that. Rabbi Sachs is in a situation now where he needs increased blessings for health. Hopefully our prayers and studying his works in that merit will bring about good health for him, a refuah shlema, complete and speedy healing in many long years of scholarly and inspirational productivity yet to come. Have a good day and a good Chodesh. Today is Rosh Chodesh, so we are saying Hallel, the shortened form of Hallel, and also the Musaf for Rosh Chodesh. Have a good day, a good Chodesh. See you tomorrow.